Welcome back everyone, Mr. O here. In today's video we're going to be talking about how to green screen your video out and put a background image behind it. Here I have just a video of Miss Herfel. This is for the MCA test results video that you saw earlier this year, or if you're watching this in the future, a long time ago. What I did in this video was shoot a video with Miss Herfel talking in front of the camera and a green screen behind her so that I can put the school logo in the background. And I'm going to show you how I did that. You're going to want to have your green screen video imported into your timeline. And the way that we remove this green background is through the use of an effect called the Ultra Key. So make sure you're in your Effects tab at the top and head on over to the Effects search bar and type in Ultra Key. Okay, and as you can see here, we've found the Ultra Key right under Keying in the Video Effects folder. I'm just going to drag and drop that onto my video. Okay, so as you can see, once I drop that in, nothing has changed yet. But over in my Effects control window, I'm going to hide some of these, and I can see that my Ultra Key is right here. Before I go into the process of removing the background, let's put an image behind our video so that we can see it through when we get the green screen keyed out correctly here. The video that I'm going to use for my background is this looping swirls animated background. Kind of looks like this, kind of cheesy. I'm just going to use this for the video here as an example. But what you want to do is put that underneath your video in your timeline. And as of right now, you cannot see that video that's underneath because this one is on top of it. What we want to do is remove all of the video that is this green background so that we can see through to the layer beneath it. All right, so I have added my Ultra Key onto my video that I want to key out, but I have not done something else that is very important, and that is going to be under the Opacity tab. Let's open that up. And remember, opacity has to do with the transparency of the video. As I slide this down, you can see through it to the background. We don't want to mess with the opacity, but rather we want to add a mask. If you remember masks from the wipe transition video, we're going to use masks in the same way here. So under opacity, I'm going to go to my pen tool, Free Draw Bezier, and I am going to adjust my size here so that I get a little bit of extra room on the edges. Okay, and I'm going to draw out kind of just a rough shape of my subject. Now the goal here is to have this pretty rough, and also make sure that you're not going to cut out your subject as they move throughout the video. So for example, if Miss Herfel was kind of moving around side to side, this mask would not work because she would end up moving outside of it. I'm just going to play my video to make sure that she stays inside of that mask the whole time. All right, that looks like that's going to work for us. Now, for example, if she were to move her hand up and wave or something, and her hand was cut off by the mask, that would be an indication that you need to change that mask. Okay. So now that we've got this mask in here, we can start working a little bit easier. I'm going to hide my opacity, and I'm going to go into the Ultra Key. Now the way that the Ultra Key works is you select a color from inside of your video, and it removes that color. So for example, if you had a blue background instead of a green background, this would also work. The reason why a green screen is used instead of, for example, a blue screen or a brown screen is because green doesn't necessarily tend to show up in everyday objects that you'd be filming in front of it. So if Miss Herfel was wearing a bright green shirt, we would end up with some problems here. So I'm going to zoom back in to fit. And the first thing that I want to do here is go to Key Color, and there is kind of this eyedropper tool. Click on that eyedropper tool, and what that'll allow you to do is select a color in your video. Now I'm going to sample a color from anywhere in this green screen that looks like it's going to be the color green that we want to remove. Okay. As you can see, that did quite a bit. But in order to see the fine details, we should change our output to alpha channel, and that will really show you what's going on here. As you can see, that helped quite a bit, but we do have some issues on our background. We have some areas where it's not totally picking up, and then we have some areas on her shirt that are getting picked up. So we're going to have to adjust some things. Before we go into the fine details, what we should do is try to sample some more colors. A lot of your issues can be resolved just by sampling a better color from your green screen. So I'm going to try this. I could try this as many times as I want, but I want to select an area that gives me the best coverage overall. Now this is looking pretty good. We've got a mostly black, and she's just got a little bit of issues on her shirt because her shirt has some green tones in it. And let's go from here. All right, now that we've got this as good as we can with the eyedropper, we're going to go into the fine detail. The first thing we can do is change the setting from default to aggressive. And as you can see, that has helped quite a bit already. Our background is pretty much completely black, consistent around her outline. But we do have some issues with her shirt here. So we're going to go into one of these 4 fine detail sliders. So we have matte generation, we have matte cleanup, we've got spill suppression, and color correction. And you probably want to adjust these in that order. Matte generation has to deal with how the matte is generated. As far as what these sliders exactly do is not super important. What is important to know, though, is that the pedestal on the bottom is usually going to be a strong candidate for helping you out in one way or another. The pedestal has a lot of power inside of your fine detail control. So, for example, what I'm trying to do right now is get rid of the black on her shirt because that's going to show through to the video behind. So let's show you what that looks like right now. If I go back to composite, you can see that it looks good, but if we play, we can kind of see some issues with her shirt here. See how it's kind of jumping around and it's flashing and we can kind of see through it. We don't like that. We want to go back and fix that if we can. All right. So let's go back. Let's change this to an alpha channel. And I'm going to play with this pedestal. The pedestal seems to help if I bring it down to 0 on her shirt, but it also hurts the background at the same time. I'm going to leave this at 50 for now. So now we want to adjust her shirt. Now her shirt's probably going to be in the shadow here. So if we bring these shadows down, you can see that now her shirt is getting worse. So what would happen if we dragged it the other direction? Her shirt's getting a little bit better. Now, as you can see, it's not perfect still, so we have some more adjustment to do. Highlight, we're probably not going to play with because that's going to deal with our background. That's only going to make this worse for us, it seems like. So I'm going to move that back to the default. Tolerance is not going to have a huge impact, but as you can see, I am getting a few issues here where the folds are in the green screen. And by moving my tolerance up, that is definitely helping there. But we still have issues in her shirt. The last adjustment that you want to touch in the matte generation, once you have everything else as good as it can get, is the transparency. And when I start to move this transparency up, you can see that it gets worse and worse and worse to the point where it gets scary. And if we move it back the other way, it gets better and better to the point where it is now going to be a lot more usable. We do have to find a sweet spot here. We don't want to go too much. There is going to be kind of that perfect position, as you can see right there. So that's looking really, really great. That's in our matte generation. That has to deal with where our matte is being applied to the highlights and the shadows and how it's being distributed. Okay, as you can see, we are still not perfect over here. We do have some issues with the folds. And I think I could go back here and move this pedestal up now, and that's going to help quite a bit. Again, this is not going to be 100% perfect, but this is about as good as we can get. So that's our matte generation. We're going to move on to matte cleanup now. Matte cleanup has everything to do with the edges where the black meets the white to soften that up a little bit. So if I zoom in here and I look at one of my edges, you can see that it is kind of lumpy, kind of bumpy, not very smooth. And the matte cleanup over here is going to help that out tremendously. So I'm going to go back to fit. And I'm actually going to try and make this a little bit bigger here for you guys. So we've got choke, soften, contrast, and midpoint. The choke, if you move that up, what that's going to do is it's going to take the edge and bring it in closer. So it's kind of shrinking her. Now, as you can see, when this is at 0, we can see some hairs on her head that are sticking out. And if I choke this all the way off, those hairs are gone. We've kind of compressed this in a little bit. Choke is not going to be very necessary for the higher values. Choke is good at something like 10. We're going to bring it in a little bit, just enough to take care of anything that we may have missed at those fringe edges, but still not enough to completely make this look ridiculous. The soften is going to be a big one. This is where we're going to take our hard edges and soften them up, kind of put a blur on the edge. Now, as you can see at 100, this is quite a bit much. I'm going to go to the composite, and you can see what that looks like. She kind of looks like a ghost, and that's not very cool. So I'm going to move this back down, and again, there's going to be a sweet spot here, probably going to be somewhere around 20. Now, the contrast in the midpoint, I usually don't find that they have a lot of effect on my final product, so I usually don't touch contrast and midpoint. Mostly the choke and the soften in the matte cleanup. You can kind of think of soften as like feathering when you're doing a mask. So that's our matte cleanup. We're going to go to spill suppression, and what spill suppression does is it kind of gets rid of, if you can see on her hair here, the light that's reflected off of the green screen and hitting her hair is turning the edges of her hair green. And the spill suppression takes care of that. Now, in spill suppression, there's kind of only a one in here that's going to be super important. I'm going to zoom in on Ms. Herfel's hair for a minute. And as you can see, we've got this green going on. We want to adjust the spill. Now, the spill is very, very picky. It's finicky. If you just take this thing and you crank it up to 100, all of a sudden, Ms. Herfel's shirt turns purple, and that's not very cool. So it did get rid of the green, but it kind of turned her orange. So we need to take this very carefully. What I would recommend is you click on this, and then you use your up and down arrow keys on your keyboard to move this up very slowly. So I'm just going to do one at a time until I feel like that green is kind of taken care of in her hair. And that looks about good. For me, it was 39. In your video, it might be a little bit different. And now that is looking really good. The color correction part here is not going to be an issue. We're not going to worry about that. So we just had our matte generation. We have our matte cleanup for the edges. And then we've got our spill suppression for the kind of that green lighting effect on her edges. So let's see how that looks. Very nice. So that is the green screen effect using a mask and the Ultra key for your projects. All right, we'll see you in the next video.